My wife thought I used my sexual assault as an excuse to cheat. Abuser convicted guilty. My wife wants me back. This is such a long story that takes place over a series of months. I'll try to get all the details without going on for too long. So basically I got raped at a party about 8 months ago. I got drunk and an acquaintance of mine took advantage of me. I hardly remember it, but I woke up the next morning naked with a vivid memory of what had happened. I remember putting up a fight, but not much else. I also have a very vague memory of her holding a phone the entire time, but that's about it. I immediately went home and told my wife. She was extremely sympathetic and let me cry on her shoulder. I was a sobbing mess. At the time I did not want to press charges because I didn't know how it would go if I, a male, accused a woman of raping me. Anyway, I ended up telling my friends because they questioned why I stopped showing up to gatherings. The girl's response was basically that it was consensual and I was lying to keep my wife from getting mad at me. Half of my friends believe her and the other half are on my side. It was a mess. In the end, I decided to just distance myself from them all. One of my supportive friends contacted me letting me know that she had gotten pregnant, but ended up aborting. This was a whirlwind of emotions for me, but in the end I decided that it was for the best. My wife took this in a different way. She says that she wasn't aware that my abuser made me finish and that I wouldn't have come if I genuinely wasn't enjoying it. We argued for days and she kept telling me I was sick for faking a rape allegation just so I could cheat on her. We've separated but are not yet divorced. I've been staying with my brother. Well, at this point, I decided that I needed to go to the police to clear my name. I hired a lawyer, and when he heard my recount of the events that I remember, he was absolutely convinced that she had recorded the encounter. I don't know why. All I mentioned was that she was holding a phone, but I guess it makes sense. Anyway, her phone and laptop were searched but there was nothing. It took months, but finally we were able to retrieve the video via the cloud. I guess you can't really ever fully delete something. The video clearly depicted me in a vulnerable state and incoherently trying to get her off of me. It was sick. Anyway, with this evidence plus witness accounts, courts sentenced her to 2.5 years in prison. When this happened, I guess my wife realized that I actually had gotten raped and has been pleading to get back into my life. She says she made a mistake and just assumed and she's so sorry, but I don't know if I can ever forgive her. I ghosted my family and fiancé after what my sister did. I need a little advice on the matter as I don't know what to do anymore. I was 21 when my fiancé asked me to marry him. He was the absolute light of my life. We had known each other since preschool, our families are very close. He would come and have dinner with us on a daily basis and vice versa. He doesn't have any siblings but I have 2 older sisters. Which is very important as he was also very close with them. We grew up together. When we started dating, I don't think our parents stopped celebrating for weeks. He helped me deal with a lot of my anxiety, and even when I gained a little weight and my mother berated me saying he was going to leave me. He told her off and said he loved me for who I was, not for what I looked like, even though he claimed I was the most beautiful girl in the world to him. We were only engaged for 6 months before the incident. My middle oldest sister, let's call her Nikki, was a very cold person. She never showed any affection. She only ever opened up to my fiancé as she said she saw him as a brother and he also helped her through a lot of her dark times such as battling drug addictions and breaking the law. She and I never saw eye to eye. I loved her dearly because she was my sister but didn't like her as a person. Out of the blue she tells me she wants to take me clubbing as we had never been together before and she felt bad that she was so distant to me. I agreed and that night we went out. Clubbing wasn't really my style, but once I had a few drinks, I loosened up a little and began having fun. The night was going smoothly until Nikki spotted a guy across the room whom she claimed she wanted to climb like a tree. She walked over to him and within a few minutes she was back and she had a sour expression on her face. I asked her what was up but she never said anything. I kept pressing because I didn't want our night to be ruined. She then told me the guy didn't want her number but he wanted mine instead. I told her he was a loser and there were plenty of guys around who would kill to be with a girl like her. She didn't budge though. She told me she needed to use the restroom and then we would leave. I waited for an hour. During this time I was sipping on a lot of different cocktails. I then started feeling really dizzy and lightheaded. I figured I'd just cab it home as I was certain Nikki had left. On the way out though, I bumped into a friend of Nikki's whom she had briefly dated. He asked me if I needed a hand to my car and I explained I was getting a cab. He said he was getting ready to leave and we could share one. I told him okay and we walked out of the club together and into the first cab we saw. I tried to find my phone in my purse but I felt myself getting dizzier and dizzier. I don't remember what happened next as I blacked out and the next morning I woke up on a hard sofa, my head pounding. When I came to, I realized I was in Nikki's friend's house and my phone was sitting on the glass table in front of me, but it was flat. When he noticed I was awake he offered some tablets and water and explained that I had passed out in the cab and he didn't remember my parents' address so he just picked me up and took me back here, where he laid me on the sofa. I told him I needed to go home as my fiancé would be worried. He called a cab and I left. When I arrived at my parents' house, my mother, father, Nikki, my fiancé and his parents were all standing in the living room. I thought they were worried about me but the instant I opened my mouth my fiancé asked how could I do this to him. I tried to explain that my phone went flat but he then went on screaming about how could I cheat on him. I was baffled. Why would he think that? I tried to explain the night's events but I kept getting cut off. Nikki then chimed in and said I was a lying s and how could I be so heartless to a man who has been there for me through thick and thin. She went on to say I kept flirting with random guys all night and then when she went to the bathroom, she saw me leave with her friend. I told her what had happened and she showed me photos on her phone where as we were leaving, his hand was on my back ushering me outside. Yes, the photo did look horrible and I was so drunk I didn't even realize his hand was on my back at all. My fiancé was so angry, he kept shouting and his mum and mine were both crying. I then asked Nikki to call her friend and he would confirm nothing happened but when she called him, he told a completely different story. He said I begged him to take me back to his and when he did, we slept together multiple times. I saw red and started crying and yelling at Nikki because I knew she had organized this whole thing to make me look bad. I begged my fiancé to believe me, but he just shook his head and left. When everyone had cleared out, my mother slapped me across the face and told me to get out. I left and went to a friend's house where I stayed for a few nights. During those nights I called my fiancé crying and pleading with him to believe me that nothing happened but it all fell on deaf ears as he never returned any of my calls or texts. My mum texted me and told me she was kicking me out and that she couldn't believe I would do such a thing and a lot of hurtful other slurs I don't think I could repeat here. She didn't even give me time to get my things as she threw everything out. I was now homeless. None of my family would take me in, as they chose my fiancé and mother's side. I was homeless and single in less than a day and a half. My entire world had been taken away because of Nikki's lies. Now for weeks I tried everything to get my fiancé back and my family. The limit for me though was when Christmas time had come and I went over to my mother's house to try and reconcile. I was sleeping from couch to couch during this time. When I got to my parents' house, I knocked on the door but no one answered. My friend then called me and told me she just saw on Facebook that my family were in another state celebrating Christmas and they had posted pictures online. Everyone was there. My sisters, parents, grandparents and even my fiancé and his family. When I myself saw the photos, I couldn't stop crying as they all looked so happy. I cried for days and days before deciding to block them all. I even returned my engagement ring. My friend knew someone a couple hours away who was looking for some help in his restaurant and he even had living arrangements above where he worked so I could get rent at a cheap price and work at the same time. I wanted to start over with my life as it hurt me that no one took my side and they all left me to fend for myself. I was able to move pretty quickly and was doing well. The apartment was tiny and I had to work 10+ hours almost every day, but I was able to save a lot of money. I am not living in the apartment anymore. I was able to rent a much nicer condo, but I am still working at the restaurant as assistant manager. Now it has been roughly 2 years since I left and have not spoken to any of my family. I have no idea what is going with them until I got a knock on my door. It was my ex-fiancé. I was shocked to say the least. All these feelings came rushing back and all I wanted to do was jump into his arms. But then I remembered the pain I had felt and tried to slam the door in his face, but he stopped it and asked that I let him explain. He said that Nikki had gotten married and she had confessed that she lied about the situation because she had found someone she loved so much and realized what a horrible thing she had done. I asked him how he found me and he said my friend told him. My entire family had been trying to get in touch with me and want to see me. I told him I needed time to see if I even wanted to have them in my life. He left and I have been a mess since. I don't know what to do. I know I will never ever forgive Nikki. She could rot for all I cared, but it's hard because my other family and fiancé didn't know she was lying. But I also felt like they abandoned me too quickly without letting me explain my side. I don't know if I should forgive them. My wife cheating on our 10-year anniversary. Yesterday was our 10-year anniversary. Brought flowers to wife's office. Found some guy nuzzling her neck and her giggling. Yup. Says it all. My wife and I were married 10 years ago yesterday. She has been working on a big project for the last few months. The last 4 weeks or so she has been putting in extra time, staying late, going in early, to finish up by deadline. This is a career maker for her. I work construction. With the rain we have crazy hours trying to make up time that we missed. So I work 12 hours on the days it's nice, sometimes a little longer. If it's raining when I get up I don't go in. Some days we get sent home when it starts, too dangerous. I usually hit the gym for an hour or two. Thursday we started at 6 a.m., mid-morning starts to rain hard. We go home. I go to the gym as usual. I cut the workout short and head downtown to see wife Megan, to give her flowers and make plans for dinner that night if possible. We really haven't seen much of each other this week. I went to bed about 9 p.m. She wasn't home, called earlier me she is working late. Not unusual for past month. I stopped and got some flowers and went into her building about 12:30. Nicole was at the receptionist desk. I told her I got here later than I wanted. Could she put the flowers on Megan's desk? She said, I don't think they went to lunch yet, why not drop them off yourself? She buzzed the door to get back to the offices. The place was deserted. I went to her office, the door was closed. I always walk in unless the receptionist tells me she is in a meeting. I walk in, some guy is standing behind her nuzzling her neck, she is reaching back over his head. She is giggling only as she can. Saying, we got to get this done. I am gut punched. I slammed the flowers down, said, happy anniversary, and walked out. I didn't hear what she said, just went past Nicole, said goodbye and left. Made it 2 elevators and out the building, then my phone started ringing. I bawled my eyes out all the way home. Went into garage, pulled my camping gear out of the rafters and took off. I drove about 2 hours to a state park. I had no idea what to do. I just had to run. I hiked a trail we have been on in the past, about a 3-hour hike. I don't drink much, so I had no booze, I just sat there thinking. Looking back, I am glad I was in a rush. Normally I bring a 45 calories. With me camping, we have black bears, which generally scare off, but get aggressive if hungry or cubs around. The way I was feeling, I might have ate the barrel that night. My phone was blowing up from Megan, so I had turned it off. I left the park to get reception, turned it on to see my good friend called. I called him back. He said Megan called him to check on me, make sure I didn't do anything stupid. We talked a bit, told him I got to think this through, would catch up on Friday. So while I am thinking about this, I go over our marriage from the beginning to see what I missed. We come from completely opposite backgrounds. My grandfather raised me with my mom. He taught me about life. He had a little saying about everything. He told me marriage would be the hardest job he ever had, you had to work on it every day. God, I miss him. We did not have much, heard Mom and Grandpa having many discussions about bills. They worked hard and my brother and I did not miss out on anything we knew of. Megan was born into money. Not overly rich but very comfortable. Went to a great college, always great clothes, new car etc. and she is beautiful 11/10 beautiful. I would joke with her if she coughed about the silver spoon getting stuck in her throat. We met, hit off, started dating. I was dumbfounded how such a woman would ever be with me. We dated quite a while before she told me about her parents and lifestyle. Our friends called us the model couple, because they thought we were so good looking we had to be models. Families were not as kind, afraid of the differences economically would come into play. Her dad and I started to get along but my mom took some convincing. She graduates, gets her first job, we plan on getting married. We work out between us that we would expose each other to our lives that we live. I took her whitewater rafting, she took me to the symphony, we went ziplining, we went to an art opening etc. We agreed we had to experience the other's interests. She was really enthused about the more physical things we did. I kinda like the symphony and such. I own 2 tuxes now. I look back and do not see any red flags. Her first 2 jobs she quit because the men all tried to get in her pants. She was paraded out in front for photo ops. Invited to conferences when other newbies were not. At dinner at a conference a partner tried to get her drunk, then tried to force himself into her room that night. She quit, the next job the same thing, quit again. This 3rd job has women as some of the partners and none of that BS is in her workplace. She seems very happy. We seemed very happy. So now, Friday, I am home. I called her. Asked where she was, back at work. I, being in a smartass mood, said that the marriage is taking second place to her job. She responded since I would not talk what was she to do. Fair enough. She will be home in an hour. So I wait. I want to save our marriage. If I am lacking in providing then I want to fix it. I want to ask why of course but I cannot accept a IDK answer. How do I phrase this? What else should I be asking? I know I will get all emotional and forget everything so over the next few days we will be going over and over this. What she did is wrong but please no degrading comments, she is still my wife. Thank you in advance. I'm full of regrets, believing that my husband cheated on me. When he didn't. Cheating is something that I have always had strong opinions about. I have been cheated on before and it sucked. Everyone knows that I don't forgive cheaters. So when my sister-in-law staged an elaborate scheme about my husband cheating, I ended the relationship. My relationship unfortunately wasn't the only one that was affected. My sister-in-law Lisa, her best friend Emma and my husband Jamie were best friends growing up. Emma got married early when she was 20. Her husband was abusive. She has 2 children with him. She got divorced 10 years later and she was finally free from his abuse. She suffered a lot however and was in therapy. Her and her children. I met Jamie 4 years ago. We got married 2 years later. Everything was just awesome. What I didn't know was that Emma wanted Jamie and Lisa made it her mission, when Emma finally got divorced, to bring her brother and best friend together. I didn't know any of this so I never knew there was a hidden agenda when I a few months into my marriage overheard Lisa talking about how Jamie was cheating on with a married colleague of his. In hindsight, I can tell it was staged because she was saying unnecessary details and was very loud. She meant for me to hear it. I confronted her then and there and she played very flustered and apologized and begged me not to ruin my marriage. She told me Jamie loved me and she never want to lose me as a sister. But at the same time she provided me with pictures and texts, they were all photoshopped, of my husband and his colleague. She begged me not to mention where I found out and I was grateful for her support and promised her not to expose her as the source. I confronted my husband with everything and he adamantly refused to admit to anything. It hurt me more that he never admitted nor apologized. Ever. He asked me where I got this from but I kept my promise and told him it was an anonymous tip. I also went so far that I contacted the colleague's husband. At the time I thought it was the right thing to do. The colleague is this very beautiful woman that my husband worked very closely with many hours a day. I was a bit jealous of that and I confided my fears with Lisa. She used it against me. I asked for divorce and the colleague's husband did too. After that, Lisa, who I thought was my friend, who called me her sister, disappeared from my life. Like I never existed. Even when I bumped into her, she was short with me and indifferent. Months went by and I was still heartbroken, processing the separation. My husband stopped trying to make me see reason and agreed to divorce. He said he wanted to move on. I started having doubts. Why is Lisa doing this now? She was my friend and wanted the best for me, yet now she didn't even answer my texts. I follow both her and Emma on Insta and I started seeing how Emma and my husband gradually started hanging out. At least once a week Emma or Lisa shared stories about my husband with Emma and her children. What I did next is very questionable and yet I don't regret it at all. I was desperate and I needed the truth. I was still very good friends with Lisa's on-again off-again boyfriend's sister. I told her my doubts and everything. I told her that Lisa was my source, that my husband was cheating and that I'm starting to doubt everything and that I needed their help to unearth the truth. Mike was easier to persuade to help me than I expected. He had Lisa's passcodes and he went through her messages with Emma. And there was everything. They have plotted every. They used my idiocy and insecurity and made me throw the best thing that have ever happened to me. He sent me all the proof I needed. Even the original photos they used to Photoshop my husband with his colleague. My world was turned upside down again and I went down a deeper depression. I stayed in bed, called in sick for 2 weeks. I have not only ruined my life but also another family. I don't know why I'm writing here. If I want advice or just vent. I don't blame anyone but my stupidity for ruining my marriage. I should have trusted my husband and the love he's shown me. I should have been honest with him about everything and where I got the news that he was cheating from. I should have not gone to hurt the colleague and her family just because I thought her beautiful. She has since quit her job and moved, but I still had her husband's contact information. I had to at least apologize. We met and I told him everything. He was so angry with me. He was crying and yelling at me and all I could think was that I deserved every insult he threw my way. I found the colleague on Instagram and DM'd her everything in a long apology. She didn't answer me. I don't know if I should tell my husband too. I know I don't deserve him at all. And I know that he doesn't want me anymore, but maybe he should just know what Emma is doing and what she's capable of doing. He deserves to know the truth. Maybe I could start with reassuring him that I'm not trying to win him back. I'm just trying to help him understand. And apologize. I need to apologize for everything. I don't know.